Welcome to Ethical Hacking Essentials, where we're looking in Module 8 at wireless attacks and countermeasures. Let's have a look. With wireless attacks and countermeasures, we have several different objectives that we need to accomplish with this module, including looking at terminology and algorithms for wireless, looking at wireless network-specific attack techniques and tools, and actually understanding another type of wireless, which would be Bluetooth attack techniques and other countermeasures to stop people from attacking your wireless network. And then we'll look at some wireless security tools. Well, let's do it. All right, so with this module, we're going to start with some terminology. So let's have a look. There are lots of acronyms and terms for every type of network you can imagine. And GSM is one of them. GSM is a universal way for wireless networks to have messages transported onto the network. And especially if you're international, outside of the United States, you find a lot of GSM. Bandwidth is obviously the amount of data, the throughput that we can put onto the network. An access point is a method to get that wireless device that's connected to the wireless access point connected into the infrastructure network or out onto the internet. The BSSID is the MAC address of this good old access point that helps set up a service. We have ISM, which is a set of contended frequencies between industrial, scientific, and medical. And so every one of them, all of us are using the same frequency, so we have to be very careful with that. And then we have the idea of a hotspot where we can make a wireless network available at any time. I mean, I can turn on my phone and make it into a hotspot. I can get a device and use it as a hotspot and have instant internet access. Other terminology is the idea of association. With association, a wireless device, a supplicant, uses a handshake. It's a wireless handshake with the wireless access point in order to agree on protocols and associate with and connect to that wireless access point. We also have an SSID. An SSID is a 32-bit alphanumeric character string that's used to identify a wireless local area network. So that AP has an SSID like the name. That's the name of the access point. And then we have technologies that allow data from the wireless device to be encoded onto a wireless signal to be delivered to the wireless access point. And some of those technologies are OFDM, which is orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, which is a method of encoding data on multiple carrier frequencies. And there's MIMO OFDM for 4G and 5G. There's 5G. There's direct sequence spread spectrum that uses pseudo-random noise that spreads the code. There's a frequency hopping spread spectrum. It's another method of transmitting radio signals by switching a carrier amongst a huge amount of frequency channels to spread that information around. So many different ways of encoding communication onto the wireless signal. So for wireless networks, if you want to understand Wi-Fi, really the IEEE working group that has developed the major standards is the IEEE 802.11 working group that has all the standards. In fact, if you want a good reference for IEEE 802.11, open up that's right, Google or DuckDuckGo page and type in 802.11, put a space there, and then type Wikipedia, and then hit enter, right? So once you do that, the first entry on the top after the ads is Wikipedia. And there's a really great article, and if you scroll for a while, you'll find a table that has all the different Wi-Fi technologies and their distances and encoding. You'll see OFDM, FHSS, and MIMO OFDM, and many others in there. And you'll find overlapping and non-overlapping channels, and you'll find all kinds of information about Wi-Fi. That article in Wikipedia is actually very good. Also for wireless networks, we have devices, personal computers, video game consoles, your smartphone, your tablet, virtually any device, and desktops, by the way. I've seen organizations that rather than set up wired networking for their desktops, get Wi-Fi cards for their desktop computers and use a wireless AP. There are many different types of wireless networks, including extensions. So I have a nice wired network, but I want other wireless clients to be able to use the network. How do I do that? Use Wi-Fi access points. I can use multiple access points. I can use access points in different hallways and on different floors of buildings. If there is not enough of a signal, I can connect two local area networks together. I can use hotspots. There are so many different ways to put together wireless networks. In that Wikipedia article that I showed you, there's a table like this that you see with all the 802.11 protocols in it. This table, however, extends it because it doesn't just have the 802.11 working group information, but also the 802.15 and 802.16. In the 802.15 working group, 802.15.1 is Bluetooth, 802.15.4 is Zigbee. You're familiar with Bluetooth, where you can have a personal area network. With Zigbee, though, that's for IoT devices. Notice how small the range in meters is with Zigbee, only between 1 and 100 meters, whereas you have 10 to 240 in Bluetooth. But there's one that even has a wider range. Look at that, 1 to 6 miles. That's WiMAX, which is a type of wireless that you use for entire cities, and that's 802.16. Let's have a look at the different types of wireless encryption. It started off with WEP. There was a specification by the IEEE called 802.11i that talks about the security mechanisms for 802.11 networks, but WEP was the first. WEP stands for Wired Equivalency Privacy, and so it's advertising itself as the equivalent to being wired. But as it turns out, because of the way the initialization vector worked and the way WEP implemented the RC4 protocol and many and many other reasons, WEP was hackable. And so next came EAP, the Extensible Authentication Protocol, that has many different ways to extend authentication. And that came along with a WPA and implementations of EAP like LEAP by Cisco that helped to make Wi-Fi more secure. One of the things about WPA is the use of TKIP, which is Temporal Key Integrity Protocol. Temporal key. So one of the problems with IV, initialization vector of WEP, and some of the aspects of it is that it never changed, giving an attacker all the time in the world to crack into WEP, whereas with WPA, the keys disappeared. They were a temporal key integrity protocol. And so this helped boost WPA as a replacement for WEP, but soon enough, TKIP was able to be hacked also, but by then we had WPA2. So WPA2 came in two flavors, WPA2 Personal and WPA2 Enterprise. WPA2 Personal is the one that most people that use Wi-Fi, watching, participating in this class, that's what you're using. So in your home, apartment, flat, in your small business, anytime somebody asks for your key or your password for Wi-Fi, that's a sign that you're using WPA2 Personal. But WPA2 Personal, what it does is it does the authentication right there at the wireless access point, whereas WPA2 Enterprise uses EAP and possibly 802.1x and uses another server, not the access point, to authenticate the user, like for instance a Radius server or some other type of authentication server. So that makes it much safer because you're not storing any passwords on the wireless access point, and that allows you to do logins that synchronize with Active Directory or other directory services, so you can log directly into your network, into your domain, for instance, through WPA2 Enterprise. A couple things to think about with WPA2 and WPA2 Enterprise is AES. AES is available with WPA2. AES is the Advanced Encryption Standard, And with that, along with CCMP, it really makes security pretty strong in terms of encryption for the especially WPA2 enterprise. There are other items that make it more secure, including Radius, like I was talking about before, and also PEEP, which is a protected extensible authentication protocol that actually uses transport layer security in a tunnel. All these technologies that you see here, for the most part, are WPA2. There's a new kid on the block, and that is WPA3, third generation Wi-Fi security protocol using GCMP 256 for encryption, HMAC SHA 384 for authentication. Much more secure than WPA2, and if you have an opportunity to use it. Use WPA3. So a few things to talk about. Not going to spend too much time on this, but WEP was very hackable right out of the box. Defined by the 8211B standard, designed to make it as secure as a wired LAN, but that 24-bit initialization vector or the stream cipher of RC4, which was implemented improperly, it had significant vulnerabilities and flaws, easily cracked. There are so many tools to crack WEP. In fact, if you were to go to a browser tab and type in crack WEP, you'd find all kinds of resources for cracking WEP. WPA came along, it's better. It implemented RC4 properly. It uses that temporal key integrity protocol, 120-bit 64 MIC integrity check. Much better with integrity checks, extended vectors, and rekeying mechanisms so that they didn't stay around for attackers. But one of the problems with WPA is it didn't use AES, so it wasn't available for government and military networks in the United States. But along came WPA2, like I was talking about before. It's an upgrade to WPA, and it comes with that nice little cipher block chaining message authentication protocol, AES security, meaning that I can use it in a government network. Again, coming in two flavors, personal or enterprise. That personal with a pre-shared key, enterprise with 802.1x or Radius, allowing us to extend the communication capabilities. Like for instance, I can have biometrics, I can have certificates, I can have all kinds of stuff with EAP and WPA2 Enterprise. But WPA2 eventually is going to run its course, and hopefully at some point everybody will have WPA3 encryption, which is way better with AES GCMP 256. Now, with WPA2 personal, you have a pre-shared key. That pre-shared key stores the information in hashes on the access point, which means that a determined attacker can exfiltrate those hashes and use password cracking techniques to crack into WPA2 personal. So WPA3 personal uses a different methodology for password-based authentication, which is called SAE, the Secure Exchange of Equals protocol, also known as the Dragonfly Key Exchange. In fact, attacks against WPA3 personal mode encryption use the word dragon in them. We'll see that in just a moment. So they usually attack that Dragonfly Key Exchange. It's actually resilient to dictionary attacks and key recovery attacks. With Enterprise, it's even better, protecting that sensitive data with that super encryption and cryptographic capabilities, including ECDSA 384 for key exchange. So Enterprise, WPA3 Enterprise has actually been pretty resilient, but there are some attacks that have been used against WPA3 in general, and in specific, the Dragonfly Key Exchange in WPA3 Personal. All right, so if you're looking at all of the types of attacks and the types of protocols and the algorithms and the initialization vectors and the key management and so on, by far the best encryption to use is WPA3. So if you have that choice, use WPA3. But there are two caveats. Number one, when you implement WPA3, make sure Everything is using WPA3. All your phones, your tablets, your laptops, your desktops, whatever needs Wi-Fi needs to be WPA3 compatible, because number two, one of the types of attacks is to dumb down WPA3. So a device will get on the network from an attacker, and the device will say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do WPA3. Can you please use WPA2?" And the wireless access point will say, okay, all right, you can have WPA2. And the device will say, "Thank you very much. Now I'm going to attack you, just like normal," right? And so it'll run a WPA2 attack against a device that, if it hadn't switched to WPA2, would have been just fine and safe. So anyway, if you're going to do WPA3, do everything WPA3 and don't allow it to switch back. All right, now let's look at some wireless network-specific attack techniques. And most of them involve a rogue wireless access point. So for instance, you go to McDonald's, and there's a McDonald's network and there's a McDonald's free Wi-Fi. McDonald's free Wi-Fi. By the way, that's the name I use for one of my fake access points that I use in demos and so on. Or Starbucks free Wi-Fi. Or if you work for an organization called XYZ Corp, and maybe there is no visible SSID for the Wi-Fi for XYZ Corp, but hey, there's a network that you can connect to, which is XYZ Corp Visitor Wi-Fi. And so people come by, they connect to it, but it's not real. It's an attacker. This is one of the first major ways that attackers attack Wi-Fi, is by setting up rogue access points. And so they have a rogue AP8211 hijack connections, steal information. They do wireless packet sniffing by setting up that rogue attack. And it's so easy. It's unbelievable how easy it is to set up a rogue access point. So one of the things that a rogue or an attacker will try to do is do client misassociation. So you set up that rogue access point, XYZ Corp Visitor Wi-Fi or XYZ Corp Corporate Wi-Fi. Try to get some of those employees, try to get them to connect to it, watch what they're doing, try to bypass the security policies of the organization. There's also misconfigured AP. So let's say that I ask one of the interns, "Hey, intern, will you do me a favor, please? Yeah, will you set up this wireless access point?" And they set it up, but instead of doing it on the test network on the bench, they set up just a very basic setup with a weak password and an SSID broadcast and making it very easy to crack. And they do it on the production network. Oh no, if it's misconfigured with weak passwords or open authentication or other configuration errors, an attacker can easily walk right into your network, steal, kill, and destroy. All right, another one is unauthorized association. And so on a laptop or a desktop running Windows 10, running Ubuntu, running OS X, you can do what's called a soft access point. You can actually have point-to-point connections between the laptop and another device, right? So that's a point-to-point connection. And so what happens is the attacker sends an email that has a Trojan in it that the user opens, and it turns on that point-to-point soft AP, and it's already pre-configured with stuff that the attacker can connect to right away, getting access right into the inside of the network. There's also ad hoc. The ad hoc is a point-to-point connection. In that case, not only are you turning on a soft AP, but you're doing a point-to-point connection directly from the attacker to a device that's on the organization network. Again, that's usually done through some type of social engineering where somebody clicks on a link and it downloads a script that configures the Wi-Fi for an ad hoc connection that's pre-configured to what the attacker wants. They use that ad hoc connection to get right into the rest of the network and do other types of attacks. There's also, like I was saying before, a rogue AP that's a honeypot. It has the name of a well-known brand: AT&T, Vodafone, Verizon, McDonald's, I'm loving it, and other types of fake advertisements. Or it could be the name of the organization there to attract a normal user to use that fake access point where the attacker can then gather information, use it for man-in-the-middle attacks, use it for password attacks, and many other types of attacks. Another type of attack is an AP MAC address spoofing attack. With the AP MAC address spoofing attack, the attacker will do a little bit of sniffing and find the MAC address of the Wi-Fi device that everybody's using. Then he will change his MAC address and SSID to the same MAC address and the same SSID. One of the features of wireless networks is wireless devices connect to the access point with the strongest signal if they can choose between access points. So what the attacker might do is jack up their signal till it's really strong and then send a disassociation signal to devices on this network, and then they'll automatically reconnect to the attacker's access point, giving them the ability to run a variety of attacks. Another type of WPA2 attack is a crack attack. This used to be an attack that was everywhere, but it's since been very much patched in operating systems and wireless access points everywhere. The crack attack is done because of one flaw, and that is the reuse of a cryptographic nonce. What is a nonce? A nonce. It sounds like a small confectionery, a dessert. This nonce smells delectable. No, it's not that. What else could it be? Well, what it is it's a type of code that should only ever be used one time, right? Have you heard of the term a nonce word? Like, for instance, if I make up the word renoncify, hey, that word never existed before. It's a nonce word, right? And now it's gone. So a nonce should only ever be used once. So with a crack attack, this is one of the types of attacks that makes use of a flaw to allow a nonce to be reused, exploiting this four-way handshake and reusing the cryptographic nonce and allowing attackers to steal sensitive documents, to get credit card information, to snoop on information, to get chat messages, to download photos, take complete control. The crack attack is horrible. It's very bad. And so we want to make sure and protect against crack attacks. All right, so the next attack that we want to talk about is a signal jamming attack. If you can imagine, like in war movies and war books, there was somebody saying, I'm trying to get the signal through, but I'm being jammed. Same thing here. You overwhelm the radio channel with all this extra noise, and pretty soon nothing can happen. And in fact, like I was talking about before, this is an ISM contended channel. There's already a lot of traffic on this 802.11 using the CSMA-CA protocol. Wait a minute. What did I say? CSMA-CA. Do you know what that is? CSMA, this point right here, this is carrier sense. And then this one here is multiple access. So what happens is devices listen for a carrier, like a tone. They find the carrier, and then everybody can jump on and share the medium. We find the same thing can happen with certain forms of Ethernet. But because anybody who wants to can jump onto the medium, in this case, wireless, the problem is that we need some way of stopping two people from, or not people in this case, but machines, from communicating at the same time. And so that's why we have collision avoidance added here. If this was a Ethernet hub, it would be collision detection, and then they would have a back off and everything. But this is a collision avoidance, and this is what helps make it so that everybody isn't crashing into everybody else. Also, this algorithm and the fact that everyone's contending for the same wireless also makes it possible to put less devices per wireless access point. But yes, I mean, you can have too many devices on a wireless access point and be jamming that just because of that. But this is talking about deliberate jamming. These are Wi-Fi jamming devices. And I want to give you a little bit of warning about Wi-Fi jamming devices. What I tell my students and my customers is these are like weapons. You can do certain things with weapons under certain legal constraints, but if you go beyond the constraints, you are in huge trouble, right? You can buy them, you can look at them, but as soon as you use them for any other purpose, you really have to think about the law. And that's the same with these. You can go online right now and go to Google and do a search for a Wi-Fi jammer, and you will find the stores that specialize in jammers. But if you use any of these jammers improperly, you're going to have a federal agent show up at your door, maybe even with handcuffs waiting for you. So be very careful how you use Wi-Fi jamming devices, and just study the law before you employ them. If your neighbor is bothering you, don't go buy a jammer to stop them from having Wi-Fi. That's not legal. Let me tell you a little bit why it's not legal. Imagine this. Imagine that there's a company that's using a Wi-Fi jammer because they don't want their employees using their phones or devices. But meanwhile, in the company next door, somebody has a heart attack and they get on a device to call an ambulance and nobody can get a signal through, or there is a situation nearby where police are in a desperate situation and need to communicate with each other, but they can't. Why? Because I turned on my CBP 2061 for some purpose, right? And now the police can't. Or there is a rescue unit coming to save somebody who is having a trauma of some sort. And as they enter a certain area, they can no longer communicate and they can't find the house or the business where it is because they can't communicate because somebody turned on their CPB 2660B jammer, right? So that is why federal and local agencies are so concerned with the use of jammers, right? For ISM purposes. All right, next thing we're going to go on to is talk a little bit about one of the best tools out there, which is AirCrack, which is a suite of tools that you can use for attacks. We're going to look at it in a little bit more detail in just a little while in the next couple of slides here, where you can see that we run AirCrack and we run a little command in AirCrack called airmon ng. This keyword here, start, and then the wireless, in this case this is an Ethernet, but normally it's going to be WLAN 0. You want the wireless interface. And what this does is it turns that interface from a normal Wi-Fi interface into promiscuous mode, where it's looking at every single frame that comes across the wire that moves through the network, right? So that it is looking at every frame, not just the ones that are assigned to it. And then we start arrow dump. And this is actually pretty cool. I like this one too, because what we're doing is we are doing a capture of all of the SSIDs that it can find. And we have more. We also capture initialization vectors. You have to do more than 50,000 IVs if you want to crack a WEP key. But in this case, we're not just cracking a WEP key. We are taking a step before the actual web crack. If you look right here, see this right here, it says secret SSID. I've talked to people that say, you know what, I don't need any of that Wi-Fi encryption, you know, because I've hidden my SSID and I'm using Mac association where only my laptop and my desktop Mac addresses can use the Wi-Fi. So nobody can see my Wi-Fi and only my Mac addresses can be used on the network. So all you need to do as an attacker is run webcrack. You run the airmon command you see here. You collect all this information. You find, it'll actually show you that there is an SSID that can't be displayed. And so what you do now is you find the MAC address of the access point, which is right here. And then you use the AirPlay and you give it the secret SSID and the target SSID, the target MAC address, and then you associate your wireless card with that target AP once you do that. But you can reveal the secret SSID and then do a little bit more sniffing. And once you do some more sniffing, you can find the MAC addresses that are communicating, change your MAC address to one of those, and you're in. But in this case, we're actually proceeding through the next step for WebCrack, which is associating my laptop with the SSID of the device that I want to do. All right, now let's go on to the next step. And then what we want to do is start doing what's called packet injection. And this is where we run AirPlay, and we're going to do the -3-B parameters on AirPlay to generate traffic now on the AP. That's the MAC address of the AP there out of ETH1, which, like I said, normally would be not ETH1, but WLAN 0. And then step 5 is we start doing the capture of the initialization vectors, capturing more than 50,000 of those that we need to crack the WEP key, right? Now, I'm going to go back there real quick, because when are you going to do this? When are you going to take your laptop or your device and crack a WEP key? It's going to take a long time. You know why? You have to find a network that's actually running WEP. And this is such an old protocol, it's very unlikely that you'll ever find one. So it is more likely that if you're doing cracking of Wi-Fi networks, that you'll be cracking WPAPS2 keys, right? So let's look at that. And remember, this is very, very general. What I would suggest that you do, if you want to really actually try this, is to get a YouTube video. And also we have a lab. We have a lab on this. I'll be demonstrating, okay, some of this. But go to a YouTube video and just type in aircrack-ng, crack PSK, and there'll be all kinds of lessons on how to do that. Find one that works with you and the equipment you have, and you can try it out. But I would suggest trying it out on your own network or on a test network, because you can run into legal trouble if you decide, hey, today I'm going to crack my neighbor's Wi-Fi. No, we don't want to do that. Got to play nice. Ethical hacking. The first word is ethical, right? Keep that in mind. So step 1 for cracking WPA-PSK is we're going to start that and put it into monitor mode. Next, we want to start collecting traffic with the double-write and capture of, and normally on, like if you did this on your own little laptop, it's going to be WLAN 0. It's going to probably be a Wi-Fi dongle or a built-in Wi-Fi NIC. Step 3, you're going to have to do a deauth on the client. Deauth says, I'm going to knock you off of the network using AirPlay. And there's a --deauth there. And then what's going to happen next is the client is going to try to reconnect. And by the way, that's one reason why I always say when you're on a public network, on a friend's network, or sometimes maybe even when you're on your home network, but it's usually a little bit safer there in some cases. If you live in a giant apartment complex, though, I would suggest this for that too, because you never know how many attackers are in your apartment complex. But my suggestion is that you don't put the auto reconnect. So if you go to Wi-Fi, select the network, there's a little checkbox where you can select whether you want to do auto reconnect or not. You'll find that a lot of these pre-share key hacks rely on the fact that the Wi-Fi client tries to automatically reconnect. And then when it automatically reconnects, there are more, but the two major things you want to do is read that connection to pull out information, capturing the authentication packet, in this case, with the Wi-Fi handshake, right? That's one type of deauth attack. The other type is the attacker sets up their own Wi-Fi fake access point, and they make its antenna stronger transceiver than the original transceiver to which the device was connected, and then it'll just automatically whoosh, makes that noise too, whoosh, It's really interesting how it makes that noise. Okay, it doesn't really make the noise, but it does. It switches over to the new Wi-Fi. And once it switches over to new Wi-Fi, now the attacker running AirCrack-NG, one of the tools. There are so many tools in AirCrack-NG you can run. The attacker can then filter all of the traffic of the connected device through his or her laptop and capture everything, right? So just a little information there on a couple of major ways that DAuth is used. You see how important it is in this case to capture that authentication packet. That's what we're doing here. So if you look down here, the next thing we do after capturing the authentication packet, we're going to run the capture file that we collected through AirCrack-NG, and there's that capture. We're going to run the capture file through AirCrack-NG. And then once we do that, we will have the pre-shared keys. Then we have the pre-shared keys. We have to run them through cracking programs to see which ones. Now, here's a big, let me go back to one slide here real quick. If you go back here, once you've captured all the pre-shared keys, let's say that one of the pre-shared keys that you captured is the password. This is the password, okay? This is the pre-shared key. It's 2022. This is my password. You can't hack it. Right, a phrase with spaces in between, some upper and lowercase words. You're not going to crack that with a rainbow table, all right? You're not going to crack that at all. It's just too long. So what you're looking for is nice, simple passwords that are up to 8 characters, maybe 10 characters, and then you're going to need to run that on a very good machine, maybe even go get yourself an AWS with extra graphic processing power or something like that, and that way you can churn through everything a lot faster. But either way, like I say, strong passphrases are actually very nice, because even if somebody's cracking your pre-shared key, it's going to be very difficult. All right, so other tools that you'll find in terms of wireless attack tools, AirCrack, right, like we said, is a suite of software. It's got sniffers, it's got detectors, it's got WPA2, PA3, web crack, analysis, and so on. And these are just some of the tools in AirCrack-NG. Let's look at just very briefly what they do. Airbase-NG is there to capture that handshake. Remember, when you do a DAuth, the handshake is what happens at the beginning before the device is fully reconnected back to the wireless access point. And it also, you can act as an ad hoc. Ad hoc is device to device. I was just talking about that a little bit earlier. Also, we have AirCrack. That's the de facto PSK cracking. We have AirDecap, which is a decryptor. And you can use to strip wireless headers also to get to the core of those Wi-Fi packets. There's also AirGraph, which is a client to AP relationship. You can dump that graph file to a third-party tool that will visualize those relationships. You have AirMon, which is able to monitor that Wi-Fi by getting your wireless NIC ready. There's AirTun, which is a virtual tunnel interface, monitor encrypted traffic. You can use it to inject arbitrary traffic. So this could be anything arbitrary, right, into a network. We also have eSide-NG, which is communications via web encrypted AP, but you don't even have the web key, so that's another really web-focused tool. We have Packet Forge that creates encrypted packets that you can be used for injection. Next, we have AirDecloak-NG, which removes web cloaking from a PCAP file. A PCAP file is a file, let's say you're doing network sniffing, and you gather a lot of network sniffing, and you want to save that. You don't want to go away when you close the program. You can save that to a PCAP file. We also have AirDrop, which is a rule-based authentication. We have AirPlay, which generates fake traffic. We have Westside-NG, which is great for web cracking in minutes. We have AirDump, which is a packet capture. We saw that as one of the commands we used a little bit earlier for IEEE 802.11 frames to collect web initialization vectors. We have airlib, which stores and manages eSide password lists. It's like a library that were used in cracking WPA PA2. We have airserve, multiple programs independently use a Wi-Fi card via a client. So you can use a client for that session it's a client-server TCP connection. And then we have tkyptun, which is another frame injector for WPA TKIP network. So if you want to hack TKIP, even works with QoS. We have WZCook, which recovers web keys from XPs when you do a wireless zero configuration utility. That's for good old Windows XP. So my oh my, lots of tools, 17 of them. If you go to the project, if you go to the AirCrack project, you might even find other tools, some under development. All right, that brings us to other tools. Air Magnet Wi-Fi Pro. And look how nice that looks. One thing I like about tools, I like AirCrack. It's great, but it is all at the terminal level, text, etc. So it's hard to visualize it. That's why there are some tools in the AirCrack suite that you can export the data and then visualize it in something else. And so, but Air Magnet Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro will do analysis. It'll do analysis of your Wi-Fi network at many different levels and give you a very nice presentation of issues that it might find. So very cool tool, a very visual tool. And then we have things like EtherCap and BetterCap. EtherCap is actually mainly there for man-in-the-middle attacks, but leading up to the man-in-the-middle attack are analysis tools that can really help with Wi-Fi Fisher, Reaver, Fern, Alchemsoft, by the way, very cool company. It's worth opening a tab and just typing in Alchemsoft and looking at some of their stuff. They have so many cool cyber security tools for analyzing, cracking passwords, getting through different types of encryption. Very nice company. All right, next we're going to look at understanding Bluetooth attacks. So you want to use Bluetooth, do you? Well, let's talk about how to attack it. So Bluetooth has a very cool stack. It's a short-range communication technology. So you don't have to have cables. Like for instance, periodically I'll see these are my Bluetooth. It's my Bluetooth headset. Kind of nice. Yeah, I could use a better one. But that's Bluetooth. Oh, and I have my little Bluetooth watch on that, tracks my pulse rate and it tells me I need to get up and walk and stuff like that. And other people have other Bluetooth-enabled devices on a personal area network. They're very short range, high-level security for the most part, very low power signals. So for people who are concerned about radio signals causing problems physiologically, that's very unlikely with Bluetooth. It allows devices to share data over short distances, so you can actually send files and do updates. And this is the stack. I mentioned a pretty cool stack before with the middleware protocol group. You have all these apps that help with the communication between the HCI that allows you direct connection into the specific hardware that the transport protocols help work with moving that information also. So that's just some of the stack information for Bluetooth. Now we move on to some of the modes for Bluetooth. There's discoverable and pairing. Discoverable sends inquiry responses to all queries. So if I have a device like my phone that's discoverable, then it will be able to be contacted by any other Bluetooth device. There's also limited discoverable, visible for a certain period of time, and then non-discoverable. So a non-discoverable device is like, nope, not answering, sorry, nope, I'm running, but I'm not talking to anybody. So it just always says, speak to the hand to anybody that tries to communicate with any Bluetooth device. Then we also have pairing modes. Non-pairable mode, which rejects the pairing request. So non-discoverable, non-pairing is the safest way for your Bluetooth device to be. But you know what? Sometimes you need to actually connect In order to do that, you have to be pairable and discoverable, or at least limited discoverable. So over the years that Bluetooth has been available, it's been getting more and more secure. Really like that. A lot of times in the earlier Bluetooth, some of the connection codes between devices were like all zeros or all ones, making it so easy to hack. It's less easy to hack now, which is a good thing for all of us. So let's talk about some of the ways you can hack Bluetooth. There are ways to exploit that stack we're talking about. There are vulnerabilities with Bluetooth, and some of the hacking attacks are as follows. Blue smacking. What a blue smacking is and some of these, if you look at smack, jack, snarf, sniff, and bug, right? If you focus on those words, it kind of gives you an idea of what it is that the attack is, right? So what we do in this case is we smack down the device with a huge overflow. It's like a DOS attack, denial of service attack, that causes the device to crash, just smack it down. It's what we're doing, like a bowling pin, just take the bowling pin and knock it over. So that's blue smacking. Blue jacking. What is jack? Like hijack, something like that, right? So we send an unsolicited message to someone's phone. It's like you took it over a little bit. That's a blue jacking, right? So you send something that people weren't expecting. You have a phone, it buzzes, and then you find a Bluetooth message that says, I knew who you are, or whatever, right? So that's blue jacking. Blue snarfing. What does it mean to snarf? That means to sip up very, very quickly, right? If you are super thirsty, you might snarf a drink or something like that, or eat very quickly, right? And so that's ingest, to bring into yourself something. And that's what we're doing here with blue snarfing. It's not you snarfing or me snarfing, it's Bluetooth snarfing. So in other words, we're eating digital information, stealing that digital information from a Bluetooth device. So if I have my phone, which is right here, and it seems like it's safe and everything's fine, but little do I know, there's somebody stealing my contacts. There's somebody stealing the personal data on my SD card. They're snarfing it. Now we have blue sniffing, right? So this is a way to gather information. It's like war driving. Have you heard of warxing before? War driving, war skating, war biking, where you have a device and you're collecting information about all the Wi-Fi connections around your area or some area, and then you take those and you publish them, especially the ones that are open connections and so on, right? Blue sniffing is like blue driving or blue skating or something where you go collect all the Bluetooth information near you and catalog it for later attack. The next one is blue bugging, right? Have you ever watched a movie and the 2 or 3 people go into a hotel room? One of them looks like rich and famous. The other 2 have sunglasses on for some reason inside the room. And the people with the sunglasses say, excuse me, one moment. They say like that, be quiet. And they get devices and they check the hotel for bugs, right? What does that mean? The hotel is bugged. And then they find a device in the light and they smash it. They find a device near the sink and they throw it away, right? Those are bugs where they're listening in on what's going on. And that's the same thing that happens. Here's my phone again. If it's bugged, right now there's somebody listening in to this class. Somebody's listening to what I'm saying, or they could turn on the camera. It's bugged, right? By the way, those devices that you use to sweep the room for bugs and listening devices, those are real. I'm going to ask you to open up a tab and type in one of 2 searches, spy devices or spy store or spy device store. That'll work too. And you'll find listing of stores that actually sell devices for espionage. And one of those are several different ways that you can sweep locations for hidden cameras, hidden microphones, hidden bugged device. So that's blue bugging. The next one that we have as an attack for Bluetooth is blueprinting. And this is collecting information about the device. And this comes from the term footprinting, which is one of the first phases of hacking, where you find out as much information as you can about who you're going to attack before you do it. For one of the first steps, and that's blueprinting, which is like footprinting. You get information, it's like banner grabbing for Bluetooth. The other one is beetlejacking. BLE devices is what it's really meant to attack, using bypassing security on those devices to listen in. It's like another type of attack. Another one is a knob attack, or knob attack, some people call it. And this is using a Bluetooth vulnerability, a specific one. We don't have time to really actually get into it, but to eavesdrop on all of the data that's being shared, all keystrokes, all chats, all documents. That's a knob or a knob attack. We also have MAC spoofing attacks, where you intercept data. And in this case, what we do is we just change our MAC address, and then the data that's bound for a Bluetooth device of that MAC address goes to the attacker. And then we have a good old MITM, man-in-the-middle impersonation attack, and usually this takes kind of several different levels to actually pull off. Several different levels. You have to do a little bit of sniffing, you have to do a little bit of monitoring of the network, and then you have to line up your attack, and then you can slip in between two devices and do an impersonation or man-in-the-middle. All right, so there are Bluetooth threats that we want to think about. Number one, leakage of calendars and address books. So with all these attacks that we just saw, you can leak information. You can have your SMS, your texting co-opted. So somebody can text a bank or a school, and they can text in a bomb threat, and then essentially you can get swatted. Do you know what swatting is? You're sitting in your dining room, eating a nice souffle, when all of a sudden the door bursts in, and there's a SWAT team in heavy gear with guns and stuff pointing at you. It's happened many times. And why would you be swatted? Well, because some evil person got control of your text messaging and sent a text in your name to like a bomb threat or something like that. Isn't that crazy? Has it happened before? Oh, you bet it has. And also we have bugging devices, where you can have make a cell phone instruct the user to make phone calls. You can even record conversations, so you instruct their phone to make a call because it's bugged, right? You can cause financial losses, right? Because you can respond to text messages or make international calls, or many other things that can result in a high phone bill. So there are some threats, but wait, there's a few more we want to talk about. You can get your phone remotely controlled. You can get worms. No, I'm not talking about the little crawly things. I'm talking about network. I'm talking about malware. And they're very interesting things. These worms can propagate Bluetooth to Bluetooth to Bluetooth. So you get near somebody else with Bluetooth, and the worm crawls into your phone and then infects your devices, and then you get near someone else with Bluetooth, and same thing happens. Social engineering, because of lower security and lower pairing with certain types of Bluetooth, and you can get tricked into doing that, lowering that security, disabling authentication, and then connecting to devices, and then they can run malicious code. Then there are protocol vulnerability. Again, the pairing and communication protocols, the codes that are automatically generated usually for pairing, steal data, make calls, send messages, and so many other things. So the bottom line is you need to be careful with your Bluetooth. We'll talk about some things that you can do to make Bluetooth for you and for your organization a little bit safer. But meanwhile, let's talk about some tools. These are Bluetooth attack tools. After watching all those dangerous things that can happen to somebody's phone, to their Bluetooth, you're probably asking, how can I do that? And these are some of the tools that can help you hack Bluetooth. Bluetooth View is very nice because it just lists out all the Bluetooth devices around the type and the name, and many other pieces of information about it. Blue Z, Blue Jack, that's Beetle Jack, BTC Crawler, Blue Scan, Bluetooth Scanner. There are so many tools that can help you find out what's near you. And then there are other tools. These are mainly ones that will find out what's near you. And then other tools like Blue Jack and Crawler that can actually do some hacking for you. All right, let's look at some countermeasures. So yeah, it's fun when we go to the labs, learning to hack and doing this for a living, taking care of pen testing and so on. But you know what? And really, most of this stuff is so that your customer, your employer, and your personal networks are safe, right? So that's why we do countermeasures. And so what we want to do is make sure that we change the defaults. Remember, no defaults. Default in all of my classes is a 4-letter word. So if you set up a device, you go back through and you make sure to change all the defaults, right? Set the router password, enable firewalls, disable SSID. When you do that, in order to connect to the network, you'll have to actually go in through a couple of interfaces and program in the SSID, all right? So disable remote router login. That's some of the best practices for configuration. In terms of SSID, you can use cloaking to make sure that SSID isn't visible. And even if the SSID is visible or invisible, don't use the real name, right? So if you work for XYZ Corp, don't say XYZ Corp Wireless. You know, just say Wireless System 1 or something like that. And people won't know necessarily that it's XYZ Corp. If you have a family or you live by yourself in an apartment, and let's say that your name is Jane McGillicuddy, right? Don't put Jane McGillicuddy's Wireless for your SSID. Just put SSID 5 or, or Wi-Fi 5 or stay away or something like that, right? Or a slogan, something very nice. Don't worry, be happy. That's the name of your Wi-Fi, right? So you want to make sure that you don't use your own information for that. And for your pre-shared key, make sure it's a passphrase, a nice long passphrase. That is, if someone captures the hashes for your Wi-Fi access point, that they'll have a very difficult time cracking that. Put a firewall packet filter between the AP and your organizational intranet. You don't want them jumping right from your access point into your network. You want to check those packets. Next thing we look at is some best practices for authentication, right? Use the highest level of authentication. Use enterprise mode with 802.1x when you can. If you can get to WPA3 and get every device on WPA3, do it. Disable the network. If you're not using it, turn off the Wi-Fi. If you have an office and you have your DSL modem here and you have your laptop wired into the DSL modem and you don't use Wi-Fi, turn it off. It's just an attraction for attackers. Put it in a secure location so people can't get onto it. And then for Bluetooth, use a non-regular pattern for pins when you have a chance to set up that pin. You don't always have a chance. Keep it non-discoverable. Don't accept any unknown. You're walking down the street and, oh, hey, there's somebody who wants to pair Bluetooth. Yes. Another one. Yes. No, don't accept any of those. Always use encryption. Check also periodically. Just go through your Bluetooth. In fact, you might even want to do it now. If you have an Android, you log into the Android, sweep down, you go to your settings, go to your connection settings, go to Bluetooth, and see who's connected. You might be surprised. Hopefully you're not, right? So keep Bluetooth disabled if you're not using it. If you're not using a Bluetooth headset, if you're not using a Bluetooth watch, if you're not using Bluetooth speakers or whatever it is, if you're not using Bluetooth, turn that interface off. It is an invitation for attack. Now, in terms of general wireless security, there are some amazing tools that you can get to help keep wireless safer and better in your location. And one of those is a Cisco Adaptive Wireless IPS. By the way, this is called WIPS, which is a wireless intrusion prevention system, right? So we have WIPS, WIBS, many of these acronyms, right? And this is one of them. And you can use this to secure either your entire wireless network or segments of your network. There's also Air Magnet Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro, WatchGuard WIPS, Wireless Intrusion Prevention System, Air Magnet Extreme, Defense, and so many other tools. Protect your Wi-Fi network. Don't allow hackers like me to attack your network, although I'm not going to do that. I only do it if you have a contract and you pay me money. Then I'll attack your network. But other than that, you're safe from here. But we want to protect our networks, don't we? Always want to protect them. All right, so what we've seen in this module is there's a lot to think about with Wi-Fi, with wireless in general. In fact, I just made the point about what I was about to say. I was about to say, when we think of wireless, usually the only thing we think about is Wi-Fi. Usually the only thing we think about is pre-shared keys, but in reality, there's 802.1x and Radius for logins. There are all kinds of protocols and encryption that you can use to secure Wi-Fi. And beyond Wi-Fi, with wireless in general, there are other wireless protocols like Bluetooth that also need to be secured from attack. And we talked about some of the methods, the countermeasures that we could use to help secure our wireless. So that brings us to the end of the topics in this module for wireless. In the next module, we're going to talk about mobile attacks and countermeasures. So join me for that one.